Hello and welcome back to another episode of Notion Bonsai, and today we're going to be showing you how you can create your very own bonsai forest from any species of tree, but the particular tree that we're using in this video today is the Dawn Redwood. So these are the trees that we're going to be using in this video today. These are a bunch of Dawn Redwoods and they're pretty tall as they are. We're actually here today in Attila's garden.
Hey guys, welcome back. Pretty excited as usual. So as I mentioned before, we got these Dawn Redwoods for you today, guys. The Latin name of it's Metasequoia glyptos proboides, and these trees what we're going to use today for our forest creation.
Now whenever it comes to making a bonsai forest, you can either plant it in a pot, or in our case what we're making today, we're going to be putting it onto a slab. This forest that you can see behind me here is a swamp cypress that Attila made, and it's in a box made of wood, just like a bonsai pot would be. And this slab isn't something that you, well, I suppose you could buy a slab, but this particular one here was made by Attila. So do you want to explain a little bit about how you went about making this concrete slab?
Sure, yeah. So I made up a box from plywood, and I get some sand into it to get how we're going to get the mold out. From another plywood, the shape of the slab what I wanted to get, and then I just put it in, hammered it in to get the imprint into the sand, and then I just mixed it up with cement. I poured it over. I use this mesh tape to put all around the slab so it gets more stability.
So the mesh is inside the cement?
It's inside the cement all the way down. It's just waited 2-3 days that you make sure that the cement is like properly dried out.
Yeah.
And I was taken out from the mold after like, I think it was 2 days. If you see on the top, it looks a bit interesting because I use, before the pour the cement, I use different rocks, and I just kind of like more hammered into the top, so you will get more this like natural looking piece of a slab.
So like that would have been like you stabbing a rock in to get
exactly, that all around the surface. And when it was dried out, because I knew that we will put a forest composition onto this slab, but I wanted to make sure that this had a concrete sealer. And a concrete sealer, what it does to this concrete slab, is it's basically if you would put water over it, as you see how it repels. Why it's really necessary to do this, because you don't really want anything to leaking out from the cement to the roots of the trees. So this is just for making sure that there's no chemicals going around whatsoever. See, as you can see, the water just flows off.
Yeah, that's like almost dry again. So before we go ahead and start trying to put trees onto the slab, we would like to wire them onto the slab first. We're going to have some holes in the slab, and then we can feed the wire up through the bottom and tie the trees in. And as you drill the holes, just sort of think in your mind like, okay, I want a tree here, so I need a wire hole here and here. That way you can wire the tree in that direction. I think the more holes the better, because it also kind of acts as drainage. Now we've got all the wire up through the slab. Now there are different configurations in which you can place trees for a forest. Of the placement, you'll see like a top-down view where it has numbers of like 1, 2, 3, and 4. And this is just so you can get a compositionally balanced forest where it looks good. And as a general rule, in forests, they do place odd numbers. So you'd either have like 1, 3, 5, 7. And it's just because odd numbers in general just look a little bit more pleasing. So we're going to keep that in mind as we form the forest. We're not going to follow any templates of where the trees are going to be positioned. We're just going to put them how we feel is best. In general, Attila was saying that you would want to place the thickest trees of the planting in the middle, and then as the planting goes towards the edges of the pot, we'll have more thinner trees then. So we'll start with the thickest tree that we have here.
For me it looks, this is the thickest and the tallest. So let's go with this. Let's find its place on the slab. So now as we choose the tree, we're just going to trim it back so it will fit better into the composition. But first, we're going to take up all the dead branches first, and even just trying to shorten back the branches, and we kind of going down, because even the tree, it's really nice and tall. I think it will be too tall if you use the whole length of the tree. So you just kind of like shorten back the top I'm basically shortening back everything to be in proportion with the tree.
So Attila now is just wiring this onto the slab as is. We're leaving the root ball intact for now, and essentially we're wiring in two directions, one growing across one way and then the other going perpendicular to that one, and that way the tree is held from both directions. And if the tree is super stable on the slab, as the roots form and the wind hits the tree, there won't be as much movement and wobble in the trees, and that way any new fine fibrous roots will be able to develop really easily. You can even tighten that in with gin pliers if you wanted to.
Thank you.
And that's essentially how we're going to wire every tree into the slab. So now what we're going to do is do that exact same thing with all of the trees, wire them all onto the slab. We're going to arrange them as we go, how we see fit and how we think looks the best. Again, with the thicker trees in the middle and then the thinner trees as it gets more to the edges. We're also going to do that with the size of the tree also, so the taller trees will go in the middle and it will sort of come slope down on each side. We've also just reduced the root balls on each of the trees just so that they fit in here a little bit easier. That way they're not all sitting super high on the slab. They'll go from like here, and then as it comes to the edges, we'll try and sort of roll it off. That way the soil level doesn't come over and then just stop abruptly. Anyways, let's get building the forest. So after assembling the forest, we found that there's a little gap here, which is just enough space for an extra tree. And by doing that, we'll have a total of 13 trees. There's 12 here at the moment, which will leave it at an odd number. It is quite a large planting. I think this is the biggest forest planting that I've ever seen in person. We did lift it a moment ago, and it's actually not as heavy as I thought it would be. I felt trees, individual trees, heavier than this. In the middle here, Attila has placed a little fern, which really adds to the whole composition, as these trees really like to be in like a wet soil. Although it is good to follow the rules of having the thickest in the middle and it goes out to the thinner trees, it is good to know these rules, but you don't necessarily always have to follow these rules. If you think something looks better a certain way, why not try it that way? So this is the landscape of the planting down here. At the moment, as it is, it looks kind of messy, but that's how any forest planting will look as you put it together. Now we're going to start placing some soil in, adding some ferns here and there, just to give the thing a lot more of a natural look. And then of course, with time, this will look even better. So it is now the following day. We spent some time yesterday adding some soil, and we were using the soil to position the tree. So if we thought the tree would look better that way, we would hold it in that position and then stuff soil into the side to get the tree to stay in that position. We do still need to add more soil around here to cover these roots and things like that. So this is the soil that we're going to be using here. I think it's a mix of compost and perlite, and it can be tricky to get this to stick around the edges of the planting as it's so light and powdery like this. So what are you doing here?
So just mixing up the soil with a bit of water, just give it a bit more sticky if possible, and then just try to build out the edges that way.
So now we have just finished landscaping the top layer of the soil giving it sort of that hilly look with the ups and downs rather than having it perfectly smooth. We wanted to give it a more of a natural forest floor look. I would just like to say on a side note that there is a few different ways of doing a forest like this on a slab. The way we did it, where you individually wire each tree into the slab, can be a little bit tricky, although if you have an extra pair of hands, like Attila and I both working on this, it is a little bit easier. But if you would like it to make it even easier for yourself, another option is planting the entire forest composition into a pot first, leaving it for a year or two until the roots fill the pot. That way you can lift the entire composition out of that pot and then put it onto the slab and make it work that way. It's totally up to you in whatever way you would like to do it. But all that's left to do now with this forest is to moss it. And there you guys have it. This is the completed bonsai forest. Now, I would like to say on a side note that we did reduce the root balls a little bit on each of the trees just to bring the height of the trees down so they look more in proportion on the slab. However, if you are doing this, I would say not to remove a significant amount of the roots as it is midsummer currently. And if you do any repotting with trees, generally you would want to do that in early spring. But all we really did was remove the taproot of the trees and leave all of the fine feeder roots to continue supplying nutrients and water to the trees.
Guys, thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much to Adam. Way easier to put this huge forest together when you have an extra two hands to helping out. And as you can see, I mean, myself, I'm really happy about it. Let's see how it progresses over the years, and we will definitely come back to a
we'll do a recap on
how it. On that note, thank you so much again to coming down and checking out our another big project, and we'll see from here.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And on that, I'm going to end off this video right here. If you enjoyed, please be sure to leave a like on this video, as it really helps out the channel a lot with the YouTube algorithm. And let me know down in the comments if there's anything that you would do differently when creating a giant bonsai forest like we have in this video, or any tips and tricks that you know about putting together such large forests like this. I'm always open to new and different ideas in bonsai. If you would like to support me and the things that I do on this channel, hit the thanks button down below. And if you would like to stay updated on all the things that I do off camera, please follow me on Instagram. It's @NotionBonsai, and you'll be able to see all the things that I do on there. But on that, massive thank you to Attila for having me at his garden once again. And thank you so very much for watching.